My name is Colin Datillo. I am going to be a senior this year. I am getting an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering, and I do research in material science in Dr. Ralph Colby's polymer characterization lab.
Why is it that you wanted to do research?
Um, I think research is an interesting way to learn more in depth about topics, and sometimes I guess topics like mine that I wasn't too familiar with even existed before I started doing it. But it's also a really good way to get some more experience, hands-on experience, um, other than an internship or a co-op, which seem to be two of the more popular ones. But undergraduate research really is a good way to learn more about a field, even during the semester.
Very cool. Did you actually do an internship at some point too?
Yeah, I'm doing one right now.
So can you quickly compare um, your experiences with research and the internship and kind of say what the benefits are to both of them?
Yeah. So I'm doing a research and development internship, so it is pretty similar in that regard. But I mean, obviously, the main difference is that when you're working in a company, your end goal is to either save money or make a new product or something. But I think the research gives you a really good kind of look into the more academic and more, I'm not sure how to say it. The research gives you the opportunity to look more in depth into things that maybe a company wouldn't be as interested in. Maybe rather than doing research just to learn more about materials, a company is more interested in learning about their materials or making a product. But research gives you the opportunity to look at materials or something that might be interesting to just to learn more about for the sake of academia.
Can you explain how you found your lab?
Yeah, so I went to a couple undergraduate research meetings just through the College of Engineering, and they provided us with a couple of resources, a couple websites. Um, Mostly, if I remember, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was mostly just the undergraduate, I don't know, undergraduate research opportunities website, something like that. But I sent a couple emails to professors on there. And then one of my friends actually in a club mentioned that I should, because I'm in engineering, mentioned that I should look in the material science department because it's pretty similar. Um, so I branched out and started kind of looking at projects in there, and that's how I ultimately found my current research. So that's one thing that I would say to people is don't be afraid to kind of look outside of just your college or look outside of something that's particularly in your area of study, in your major, because there's a lot of applicable things that aren't necessarily in the exact same vein of study.
Do you think having a website that would have helped you get connected to a research project or lab have helped made being connected to research easier?
I see. Yeah, that would be having a website that you could enter some criteria that could kind of return you some information about what kind of opportunities are out there would be really helpful. Especially like I was just saying, if it kind of helps you branch out, does a little bit more of that for you of looking at applicable fields that maybe aren't necessarily right in your initial search criteria. Yeah, that would be a really great way, especially if they, it's kept up to date and professors can put openings and opportunities for students. Then it'd be a really great resource, I'm sure.
Can you tell us how your research experience in the lab was, maybe from like a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis?
When I first started, it was a lot of just getting trained on instruments and kind of being familiar working around the lab, getting used to where everything is because it's a pretty big lab and there's a lot of stuff in there. But once I got more comfortable, it became kind of picking up and becoming more independent with the project, running tests, analysis, and a lot of, I guess, on a weekly basis, a lot of what it is would be kind of planning out a couple tests for the week, getting the data, looking at the data, maybe trying to draw some conclusions, but then really coming back to the advisor, coming back to your professor, and then seeing what they think, kind of planning where you want to go for the next couple of weeks. Because as an undergraduate, you can certainly be beneficial in the lab and you can certainly draw your own conclusions and everything, but it's not, it's still research, so it's not particularly easy work. So having an advisor to go to bounce ideas back and forth with is a really good way to, it's a good way to learn, but also just advance your research.
Last question. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits that you found in doing research?
Yeah. Well, one, it was just kind of really interesting. If you're into science and you're into, or I guess whatever field you're doing research in, maybe doesn't really have to be science. But if you're into some particular field or learning more about some particular topic, you can really probe your curiosities, for lack of a better term. Um, and then also you get really good hands-on experience working in lab and doing kind of practical experiments and using things that you learn in class, and seeing how they actually relate to real materials. In my case, that is. And then also it's really great resume building material. I I hadn't had an internship before the one that I'm doing now, and I think the undergraduate research that I did was a really big contributor to kind of giving me the background that I needed to be a competitor for the opportunity that I'm at now.